Hello, it's Andy. I'm going to go for a hike today. The difference between a hike and a walk, that's the eternal, shall we say, question people often ask themselves. And I always define it as a walk. You're just going out for some time outdoors. You have, shall we say, just gone out and had a little bit of exercise, walked somewhere, seen something. There's been no particular purpose or, shall we say, need to exert yourself. And then you come home and you've been outside and you've enjoyed the fresh air. A hike is how I define it, is a sense of purpose, a sense of urgency, and a kind of sense of wanting to pursue a bit more effort in the process of your walking, and possibly you could argue just a fraction more, shall we say, speed with it, and on top of that a desire to get to a prescribed location. That's how I define it. Obviously other people have various different takes on that, but you know, if you talk to people, the view on going for a walk and going for a hike, it conjures up a lot of different, should we say, viewpoints from people. Yeah, so basically, I'm going to be taking a flask, because why not? Let's stop somewhere and have a cup of coffee and enjoy the view and scenery. I'm taking a hiking stick, I'm taking a hiking jacket, and I've got a lightweight runners or joggers top on. They allow sweat to wick away from you and keeps you cool without becoming damp too badly, and then obviously you start to feel a chill. I do have, as I will show you now, some army combats. Now, they do the job, and I'll be blatantly honest with you, if it's good for hundreds of thousands of squaddies that's gone through the system, it's going to be good enough for me to go for a bimble round here. The material in itself is same as a running top. It comes in various different grades and thicknesses for like summer use, should we say inclement use, down to winter conditions, so you need to read the label if you're going to purchase any yourself to get the right one that you're looking for, but they do come in various different grades, shall we say, for weather conditions. They're easily sewable. That's another reason I like them. You can rip them and you can sew them up with just a needle and thread. You don't need to send them back to the manufacturer like some of these new, shall we say, hundreds of pounds worth of walking or hiking trousers with these newfangled materials that need to be repaired by professionals. I was given this watch as a Garmin about 2 years ago, and I haven't actually fully utilised all the aspects and features it has, but I do use it to track my mileage and provide a map of elevation and things like that. So I'm going to take this one along, so this will be coming as well. I'm going to put these wellies on to head to the shed, but this is the difference, another difference. If I'm going for a walk, I will take wellies. If I'm going for a hike, I take proper hiking boots. Many people will be familiar with this type of boot, but it's what I use for hiking, and as I keep reminding, shall we say, people, it served me well. I know them, I feel comfortable in them, and yeah, they're going on now. The only thing I will add is that I do wear 2 pairs of socks, as you can see, a thick heavy under one and a lightweight on top. That is so it reduces me the chance of getting blisters and that. There was a time I could wear these with just a pair of thick socks and I wouldn't get any feet issues, but I pretty much had boots on a majority of my life. I've since, shall I say, moved over to these items for a lot of my outdoor work, and I believe they've kind of like, they are actually comfortable. You can't get away from these new welly boots. Are comfortable and supple and soft. They're not like the old car tyre ones you used to get 30 years ago. They're very supple, and they, should we say, are comfortable. But they're not man enough. They don't provide the support these do for when you off-road and shall we say some difficult terrain. So disregard anything that you may feel I'm trying to say about those, as in, using them outdoors, in your garden and in those circumstances, perhaps in a field. But these here ultimately are what you need to be wearing for long distance hiking, or shall I say at least off-road in difficult conditions. Right, it's just a lightweight hiking coat. It's a bit of drizzle out there, and that will be more than man enough to cope with that. I'm not dealing with thunder, shall we say, storm conditions. So yeah, that will be more than man enough. And as I've said before, I'll just be taking that there, and I will be taking a head torch because my walks do tend to don't follow an exact science, and I have been left many occasions walking through the lanes in the pitch black. Right, I'm all ready to go. Like I said, head torch in my pocket as well. I've got my flask in my pocket. I'm not taking any kind of carry system for it or any of the, they're going in my pockets. I do actually hate doing that because you get what I call stuffed pocket syndrome, where as you walk it's rubbing against you, you feel it, it pulls to one side on your garments. So I do like a carry system, but for today it doesn't really warrant it, and I'm going to try and keep this as simple as I can and head out and see what's happening in the world. Well, I'm underway and I'm heading on the lanes, just heading out of my village. This is just one of several routes I can take. Right, just a quick word of, shall we say, caution. You should always walk to your abilities. That is the same to any kind of physical exercise that you do. Now, I'm on the lanes. I'm filming now, so I've kind of slowed down, but if I'm on my own and I'm lightweight hiking as I am now and I'm in the lanes, I'll be pushing more than 4-minute miles. That will take a bit of effort, and you will, raise your heartbeat, and it will put your body under a lot of stress. As with all exercises, if you're unsure of your physical abilities or anything like that, you should always get yourself assessed by a doctor or health professional, just to make sure that you're of, shall we say, sound physical condition to conduct a strenuous exercise. Now, if you're just going for a small little walk, which we should all do, I would hazard a guess, we should all be doing it. But like I said, if you're really going to push yourself hard, and as I've just said, once I put the camera away, I shall be really pacing this out. I would suggest you just, if you're unsure of your physical condition, get yourself checked out first before you really start pushing yourself. Just talking about health, it always surprises me how many drinks bottles or cans you find just thrown in the hedge in total random places. Now, I can only suspect there's some serious hardcore drinkers out there in the world if you can't go without a drink when you're, shall we say, in the countryside. True to form with Cornwall, the weather's closed in and it's rainy. I've got the option to go one of 3 ways. I'm going to take the one heading down here because I know there's a woodland and a footpath through it, and that will give me some shelter from this rain. When the fields become totally saturated, it does find its way out onto the roads, as you can see here, and more often than not the roads actually become part of the actual river, or so shall we say stream system. So that's always something you have to bear in mind when you're driving on these roads. I'm now going to be taking this footpath, which is going to take me up that steep hill, and it will take me into a small farm and then across a few fields into some woodland. The public footpath or right of way or whichever classification it's got, they are national treasures and they deserve to be talked about in more in depth. Now making my way up through a path that is part of the footpath. As you can see, there are signs, basically sheep grazing. So obviously if you had dogs, you'd have to keep your dogs well under control. And there's actually a nice sty here, which is unusual when you get well off the beaten track. But yeah, it's nice to see a easy negotiable footpath sty. Well, I didn't film going to the top of that track and in around the farmyard because obviously people live there and privacy and all that. I can understand that because as I've got older, I kind of value my privacy and personal time and space. And let's face it, in this day and age you get very precious little of that anyway. So always afford it to others, and if need be, request it from other people. As you can see, I am reaching some elevation here again after going down into a valley, and even with the wind, mist and shall I say rain showers, you can still see quite far and it is quite stunningly beautiful. And as I make my way around here, you can see a village directly in front of us, and I will possibly be heading there. I'm not sure yet, but I will continue along this track. I'm looking a bit bedraggled because yet again, you know, how wrong can you be? It's not supposed to be rain, but there is rain, and when I left home it was just possibly the odd little shower, but I've just been caught quite heavily. My kit is holding up. Like I said, it's man enough for this, but I wouldn't consider this if I was going up on the high ground. Quite simply, yeah, you'd be foolhardy to go up like this because you have, at least I have protection from hedges and the canopy of the trees, which has given me some protection when I do want to have a bit of shelter. The high ground doesn't afford that quite so easy, so yeah, pick your clothing as you go. I've stated that before in videos, but yeah, I was just going to mention that just showing you those views and that, as a young man, and I'm talking, shall we say, anywhere ranging from 12 to 15, 16. For 16, possibly I had motorbikes, so I became, shall we say, more concerned about chasing the ladies at that point. But before that, to go and see my friends and that, I wasn't 100 wholly and solely, shall we say, concerned about using the footpaths. And I used to just go overland, and it actually is astonishing to think that I would actually end up in the places that I wanted to be at, and they could be some, you know, 8 to 10, 12 miles away from my home location, down through valleys, woodlands, marshes, rivers, you know. And in a lot of cases there was a lot of educated guesswork in looking to the horizon and trying to find out roughly landmarks to where I needed to aim to. Obviously once you've done it 2 or 3 times you became accustomed to where you was going, but this was a big sense of adventure for me as a young man, and I can still remember it to this day. And like I said, at 12, 13, you know what I mean, I was totally off the beaten track, scrabbling over hedges, ditches, and just making my way there, and not a care in the world. And it, you know, it was those carefree days that possibly, I suppose, as you got older, you kind of miss. Yeah, like I say, I'm now heading, well, completing this last little bit of track here. The going underfoot is really good, and the wind is up, but I'm like sheltered from the hedge to my side here, which is making things very pleasant. I am now going to follow this down to a gateway, and I've got a very small bit of field to go through, keeping to my left hand side, and I'll enter the woodlands. Just out of curiosity, you can see the trail that from these buildings the sheep have been using to head off down to another gateway to a lower field system, and it's not churned up on either side. These sheep seem reasonably intelligent. Yet again another sign on this gate, and I'll be pushing on down through there into this woodland, down through this valley. In essence, this runs for many miles actually. It's unbroken woodland, obviously owned by various people, all the way back over the crest here and through to another valley, few valleys over there. And it is all pretty much the same type of woodland and in the same vein, and we'll have a little look at that when we get down. I would have imagined there would have been a lot of blackberries here, and that may be something I might want to bear in mind next year when the season comes around. But yeah, you can just hear the river down there. It actually sounds like there's a lot of water moving. The wind has picked up and it's looking even more ominous in the sky. It's 20 past 3 in the afternoon. I'm possibly not going to have the time before darkness to do everything I want to do today, so I should probably take the path back up through the woodland instead of heading up to that village, and from there pace it out back home. And it's, you know, nothing wrong in doing so, because you know, we're out to enjoy ourselves, and this isn't about how wet, dirty, tired and how late I can get home. So yeah, as you can see, it's a beautiful stretch of woodland, heavily populated by deers, I have to say that. So you might always encounter one. Just panning it around again, and this is a track diving deeper into the woods. Yeah, sadly there is still signs from, shall we say, how the land was viewed and managed many years ago. I mean, the communities that, shall we say, formed this land probably didn't see the land as we do these days. You know, it was about providing a living, and possibly the environmental side of it wasn't such a big concern back then. Yeah, I'm pushing on down through this track. It's really nice being out actually at this time of day. The light has got that nice gentle feel, and on top of that I'm out of the wind and I can hear the river below me. I've seen some evidence of pheasant pens, so I should imagine this woodland supports a shooting community. That is just a fact of life, and yeah, so you know, woodlands are still used these days for agricultural and sporting purposes, and indeed I suppose that allows in some respect for money to be ploughed back into keeping these woodlands as they are. But yeah, that's a very controversial subject in itself. You can probably hear the river now in this part that I'm videoing, but just take a look at those trees. They are so heavily covered in moss. This really is a damp and sunlight deprived environment here. I mean, some of this moss is actually hanging several centimetres off the wood. Yeah, a lot of the trees aren't looking the healthiest. They've got that kind of, shall we say, degraded, kind of half-starved, half-rotted look about them. So, in essence, I would suggest that this piece of woodland sees very little sunlight on this slope. And indeed, when you look back up there, I guess, you know, I'm pretty much 100% correct on that. Yeah, this tree here Looks like a giant spider cascading down over the bank. Since we're here, I'm going to come down to the river level and just quickly show you the river. I've actually got to backtrack 100 metres, join the footpath and then move further up through the woodland to the way I need to go. Yeah, there is a convenient bridge over this river, otherwise you really would have difficulties crossing. In fact, I think the nearest crossing is probably a mile and a half away on foot. There you go. There's a little island in the middle and the river's diverting around it in a forked manner. Bringing you around. You can see back down. There's a lot of water moving through this river. And indeed here's another little island providing support for the bridge. It is quite slippery and you wouldn't want to be in a hurry to get across it. But as the light is beginning to become a bit of an issue, I'm going to press on back up through the track and join the path I need to. I've still got my flask of coffee to have, but as much as I would like to indulge in that in here, I'm going to try and just get to the top of this and get to the shelter of a hedgerow system, because it's not as, shall we say, bright as it could be, and it's a little bit gloomy, and I've got the trees dripping on me, whereas I fully suspect if I was out of the woods on top I wouldn't even have that at the moment. So I'm just going to push on up through the tracks that you can see behind me here, and that will take me into a field system opposite the valley I came into this wood system on. Right, just pushing up to the left hand corner in this track, and it seems like a substantial tree wasn't able to take the recent storms we've just had. It looks like it didn't have a very big root system here, and it's not looking, to be absolutely honest with you, the best condition of trees. But in any case, it was alive. I can see evidence of good branches, but it just wasn't able to withstand the storms, and it succumbed. But even a tree of this size, as you can see, it should have had a bigger root ball than that. There you go, you can see that root ball there. There is still some clinging in the soil. There is nothing to stop this tree from pushing runners up from this trunk now, if left in that manner, if it hasn't had too much damage to this root stock. Now, the fact there's some in the soil gives hope that it could possibly do that, but I do know this path is used and there are trees further down there that are cut up, so I would suggest somebody at some point will come along and take this one down. But yeah, sad fact of life, I suppose. The wind does take some of these old trees down, and with the amount of ivy on those there, they're probably not long to follow. The holly tree here though is looking in excellent health, and I would suggest it's probably going to have a big spurt of growth over the next few years with the sunlight available to it, where this tree would have been in that left hand corner of sunlight, or skylight there now. The holly tree at lower levels will always have prickly leaves, but these don't provide the opportunity for the plant to convert sunlight very efficiently. So at higher levels the leaves become almost round, disc-shaped, and they lose their prickles. They become almost like traditional leaves. That is because they're better suited to provide the tree with the efficiency to photosynthesize sunlight. But at lower levels it puts prickles on the leaves to provide defence against herbivores. A holly tree will become quite substantial if left unmolested, but there's a lot of folklore around the holly tree. The holly tree that produces the berries is the female one, and one that doesn't produce the berries is the male one. Folklore surrounding the holly tree is quite varied, but in essence, one story goes that there were two king brothers of the forest, and that is the king of the oaks and king of the hollies. Holly trees, and they were locked in this everlasting battle, and they disliked each other, and it would always be the oak king that would win during the summer months or summer solstice, and the winter solstice the holly king would win and take his turn to reign at the woodlands. Now those are just part of common, shall we say, UK folklore, and it's quite blatantly evident that the radiance of the holly tree in the winter months, due to its evergreen, is quite stark contrast to the oak, which is bare. But during the, shall we say, summer solstice, when the oak leaves come out in the woodland, it overshadows the holly trees themselves. I wouldn't have to be much of a tracker to see that sheep have been gaining access to this woodland through this little nook in the barbed wire. They've definitely left their calling card, and I would suggest, even for a sheep with tough skin, that's going to probably cause a little bit of discomfort pushing through that barbed wire. Yeah, I've just come through that gate, scanning back up this field. You can see there's a fair slope, and this field borders the woodland we've just been in, and there is a fair little gradient to come up that I've just, well, made to climb up through, and I'm going to push on up through here following the footpath. There is galvanised roofing and roofing materials spread right the way through this field. We've had some really big storms just recently, and you can hear the wind picking up in this video, so I will pretty much call it a day before I get home with the videoing, because how much value is there just listening to a load of wind noise? So you can quite clearly see roof structure there obviously came off that old rundown building or barn there, and it's just disintegrated across the whole field. That's just a fact of life when these buildings get left and they become in a state of disrepair. I possibly don't see that one ever being put back into use, but obviously you know, you just don't know what you could find. Am I likely to walk back through here and find planning permission and a 3-bedroom house with a half a dozen four-wheel drive cars parked outside and signs saying, like, you know, no walking? But who knows? But yeah, the wind has really taken its toll on that building there. I wonder how long that one has been there. There's evidence of modern concrete blocks there, so somebody's tried to, shall we say, put it back into some sort of use at some point, but no longer at the moment. Right, I've got some shelter behind a hedge. You can see the village I was walking to, and I've basically done a circular around the back of this rise, coming back through those bunch of trees there, which is the top of the woodland, and then come back out through and come across these fields here. Now, I was going to push it there, but you can probably just about make out the sky is at that point where, you know, last light isn't too far away. So I'm pushing on home. So, as I say, my calculations always run adrift. But what is quite nice is, yet again, the landowner farmer has been thoughtful enough for walkers to put a sty in. Now that is beneficial to themselves, because you don't get people trying to go over gates that are of disrepair, even though this one's good. So it's saving their gates being climbed over, and it also indicates the way walkers should be going. Farmers sort of get sometimes irate when they spot people walking around their boundaries looking for the exit and entry point to footpaths, but if they're blatantly obvious like this, the landowner is quite within his right to point to somebody and say, look, I've put an official pathway in. You can see it if you take time to stop at this entrance and look around. You will see this from, afar. Is there any need for you to be walking, shall we say, 300 yards out of your way over this end of my land when the entrance is blatantly staring you in the face? So it's a double-edged thing for a landowner. Just a small little investment like this could stop you a lot of stress and, getting irate over people walking over patches of your land. But on top of that, it gives the farmer the legitimate right to say, hey, look, I've put a pathway sty here in, use it, and you don't need to be going everywhere else. For everybody, it's a win-win in my view. Right, I'm pushing the last little section of off-road before I hit a lane again. This is a good few miles of off-road, and it's nice. This is relatively easy going on this bit of field. It's not boggy, marshy, hasn't been turned over by cattle, and indeed the grass is relatively short. Now I'm coming up to like a little what I would call like an old trackway between two fields, and well, in essence that's what it is. This will be taking me out to, like I said, a lane. I will get my bearings, get my stuff together and have my cup of coffee out there, and shall I say, trudge the lanes home again. And I should probably put a little bit of a spurt on, because I'm beginning to feel rather peckish. You can see something's been making its way up over there over a lot of years, I would suggest. But yeah, as you can see, it's relatively narrow, and this is actually quite slippery now. You can see my feet there. I'm actually putting 1 foot forward and one sliding back actually on all this. It is quite hard going actually there. But hey, I'm going to push on through, and I'll see you at the other side. Yeah, for the ladies, don't bring your high heels, and for the gentlemen, your latest fashionable, shall we say, celebrity trainers, yeah, leave them at home. They're of no use to you here. As you can see, you would regret it instantly, but I've nearly made it through. And there we go. That's pointing the direction we've just came. And I'm out on a lane, and I will be taking that direction home for a couple miles. There are other footpaths I could utilise, but like I said, you can see it's all getting pretty, that time of day you need to be thinking about heading home. Yeah, well, my flask top, that's decided to give way and break. So that's the end of that flask. It has been a good companion, and I've had my money's worth out of it, and I shall drink the contents now. And like I say, I think a new flask is in order now. Well, as I said before, I've come out to the road. I don't have the best equipment, shall we say, phone-wise, to do any more filming. And indeed, this is just going to be me trudging those lanes. Some of them, probably the last mile, what you've already seen that I came down on. So there's no real value in you seeing any more of that, or me trying to capture it. And indeed, once I get out of the shelter of this hedge, I'll be buffeted by a bit of wind, noise, and, shall we say, rain. So I'm going to call it a day here. And I hope you just sort of like enjoyed a little bit of a hike through, shall we say, some Cornish countryside this time of year, which is winter. Um, it's wet, it's blowy, and indeed everything's looking a little bit drab, but there is a special kind of beauty to it, and I hope that came across. And indeed, in today's world, isn't it just nice to be out by yourself, nobody else around, and just enjoy being out in nature? So this is Andy, and I hope you stay safe.